of pride coming out of an activity absolutely covered in whatever it was you were doing, right? And they have that in the fire service. There's this image of a fireman, you know, usually pretty muscly and looking a lot better than I do, but with their face covered in soot, having saved somebody, right? That's the kind of the trope of the fire service. But in actual fact, the correct trope should be that same image, but with a perfectly pristine, clean face, because they were wearing the proper PPE to be doing their job. There should be no dirt around the face and nose whatsoever if they're correctly managing the risk, right? But that's the image, and I know it's not the same in construction, but in a way it is. I think back to my early days in construction, where, you know, the tape and jointers would come out of a space absolutely head to toe, look like they'd been frosted, and delighted with themselves to some level. And they might have been wearing some crappy paper mask, but like, generally speaking, everything was absolutely, you know, they'd pat themselves and there'd be a big cloud of smoke, you know, or joiners doing certain activities and being absolutely covered in it. There is a bit of that still, I'm guessing, in construction, where look, I'm doing a job, but, you know, if I'm doing it properly, I get covered, you know, like, it is what it is, you know, and you've got to fight against that. That actually what we want to see, the good result, is you coming out, yes, covered in dust, but wearing the appropriate overalls for it, and with a completely clean face is what we want to see.
Yeah,
right.
Want to see.
Yeah.
And I think, like you say, it has changed a lot. You know, I'm not sure if they I don't think they ignore the risks as such. I think it's they know it in the back of their mind that they are there. And a lot of the times I'll go out on site, and we do these walks called health intervention tours. So we focus on, we'll walk out onto a site, for example, and with the health and safety team, I do these, and we will focus on the hazards that we see. So we will give positive kind of interventions, if you like. So we will give positive feedback if they're doing the right things, which we do see. It's not unusual to see people doing all the right things that we want, and to employ the control measures that they need for that particular task. But then we will also kind of do room for improvement, or negative, although we don't really like that word, interventions as well. And that will be, you're maybe not doing the right thing, or you're nearly doing the right thing, but, you know, what's the reason behind why you've decided to do this? And the answer we always get is, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. And my kind of comeback to that is, look, this isn't me. This isn't my lungs. This isn't my health. This is you. This is not us walking around having a go at you for not doing something, or, you know, or doing something you shouldn't. It is literally to say to you, please think about your health. Please think about the future that is coming. And do you need anything from us to help support you doing this? Is this, you know, a reason that you didn't have any RPE in stores today, or your on-tool extraction is broken, or whatever it may be, then we can try and support them with that. So you do get different answers, but thinking about generations, I mean, you know, a couple of years ago, I was walking around a site, and I got talking to a couple of lads who were in their early 20s, and, you know, I can't remember, I think they were electricians. I said to one of them, look, just, you know, make sure you're drilling into the ceiling, that this is concrete. You need to be, you know, having appropriate RPE if you haven't got on-tool extraction, and, you know, probably need it anyway. And he said, oh, I'm only here for a couple of weeks. Like, this is just a, you know, part-time job. I'm just like, you know, it's not going to be here. It's not going to happen. Anyway, then I rounded the corner and got talking to a guy in his around his 50s. And he said, oh, I was only going to be here for a couple of weeks, but actually I'm still here, you know, doing this job. And I just thought, wow, that's happened within kind of 10 minutes of each other. And it just shows the kind of thought process. They think, oh, it's just, you know, it's a quick job. It's a quick drill. I'm in a rush. I need to get things done. I'm only here for a couple of weeks. I don't need to worry about that. And then life happens, and people end up staying in that trade. And I would like to think that the kind of older generations, if you like, in construction are teaching the younger, you know, generation to do the right thing from that point. You know, don't leave it until you hear about your mate who's got silicosis or COPD because they've been exposed and didn't take the right control measures,
Yeah.
Take that action now so that you will retire healthy and happy and work until you want,
Yeah, it's really interesting. There is an invincibility element, particularly to the younger generation, isn't there? That we all hark back to in our early 20s and late teens, where you could go out drinking and get up the next day and work. You can you shake off illnesses in 24 hours. Like, you just, like, not a lot troubles you when you're that age, and it's very difficult to project how I feel in the morning when I have to think about standing up on the side of the bed every morning for 30 seconds, prepare myself. So it's a hard one to do that long-term projection. So I'd be really interested to kind of get a picture of what that kind of health and safety routine looks like when we're talking about dust on construction. You were talking about walkarounds then, and you were also talking about at the very beginning kind of 3 areas that you focus on: kind of wood dust, silica dust, and general construction dust. What does that practically look like for people that are, if you were never seen this before and you were coming to do a site tour of a construction site? What is occupational health and safety with dust these days?
I mean, for myself, like I say, when I first started in this role in 2021, me and the director of health and safety, who's my manager as such, kind of sat down and planned out with one of the doctors that we work with, one of the occupational health doctors that we work with, how we could kind of make a difference in terms of being visible on site and highlighting these hazards and risks to the workforce, and just to encourage kind of what should be done, if you like. So we came up with these HITs, these health intervention tours, and people do site inspections and check-ins and things like that, but this is slightly different because the focus is purely health. So how that would look, the health and safety team are very heavily involved with the HITs. I visit each site once a month and do a HIT with the health and safety manager. And it involves us literally just walking out on site and talking to people. And we may see a particular task going on, and it could be any kind of hazard that we pick up on. It could be noise, it could be musculoskeletal risk, it could be fatigue even. And what we found, because obviously we collect this data, so we collect the data in terms of our positive interventions and our negative interventions. We keep numbers on them, and it helps us because obviously, like we were saying at the beginning, depending on the stage of the project, you're potentially going to get more hazards, or you're going to get more positive interventions at that time. It just really depends on the trade that's on site and what is happening. But that data kind of, we looked at it, and we kind of were seeing that our dust interventions were a lot higher. And that could be positive and negative. It was just the general number was a lot higher that we were intervening. And I think that's just a reflection that dust is common, and the jobs that we do in construction, it creates dust. That's as simple as that. And that's across the construction industry in total. Looking at that data, and I was sitting on it and thinking, we really need to do something about this, because this, we don't want people becoming unwell. We want to reduce the risk to these operatives of the exposure of dust. So, and we really honed in on silica dust. So for us, that was, coming up time and time again. So we kind of put together a bit of a silica, well, we call it Silica 25, but it's a continuous thing. It wasn't just for 1 year, a bit of a program. And there's 3 elements to that program. So there is prevention. And when we're talking about prevention, we're talking mainly about artificial stone or engineered stone. So our aim was to ban artificial stone on all our upcoming projects, which we have been able to do with the help of Dr. Joanna Feary, who's a respiratory consultant at the Royal Brompton Hospital. She wrote a paper about her clinical practice. in her work to do with artificial stone silicosis. So with her help, we managed to ban that. The second arm of it is protection. So with protection, we're mainly looking at RPE, making sure that our operatives have suitable and appropriate RPE, but also that there is the education and awareness around the dust that they are exposed to. They understand what it can do to them. They understand how to use RPE and what to use in that particular task. And then the third one is detection and monitoring. So that is to do with health surveillance, the routine health checks, and just, helping support our contractors to ensure that people are getting health surveillance and they're getting the appropriate health surveillance if needed. So those are the kind of three aims, if you like, that we're focusing on. Of course, our ban in artificial stone kind of came in late last year, but that doesn't mean the programme's over. We certainly are keeping going with what we can do to reduce that risk. So lots of kind of things in the pipeline potentially. And I guess it's really about supporting our contractors. It's not, we talk to them quite frequently about the issues that they face and the struggles that they face with various things, and we want to try and help them, support them. So it's not us kind of barking at them or demanding things. It's saying, well, okay, well, this is what we want as a standard. Is this possible? And how can we help you to achieve that?